Hello everyone and welcome to Global Goals. My name is Tom Bradbury. I'm joined by Charlotte Hindson, Josh Horsfield and Alfie Clark to take you through another day of the World Cup in Qatar. Here's what we have in store. Switzerland secured an early win on the board, taking on Cameroon in the opening game of Thursday's action. Meanwhile, Uruguay went head-to-head with South Korea, hoping to live up to their name as the true underdog of the tournament. Elsewhere, Morocco and Senegal both failed to win in their opening games, and Ghana looked to become the first African team to pick up 3 points in Qatar as they took on Portugal. Finally, one of the tournament's favourites, the Brazilian squad, hoped not to slip up early doors as they faced Serbia in their opening fixture. It was a great game to kickstart the day, which ended with Switzerland taking victory over Cameroon. A strong start to the game for sure for the Swiss half, and it also gave them an edge come half time. I'll come to you first, Alfie. What do you think to the team's performance throughout the first half?
Yeah, mate. So, Cameroon, for one, I thought, they came out to frustrate them, to be quite honest. They were playing a really, really tight formation, not really allowing much space down the middle. Donald Mbolo and also Granit Xhaka, who's had a great season at Arsenal, they're going to be some of the danger men trying to go forward. And they weren't really allowed to do that much. I mean, Mbolo slipped in behind at one point, was called for offside, couldn't get his chance away. And Xhaka was really trying to spray it quite far over the top. Obviously, was left space out wide for Shaqiri and Vargas, but they didn't really have too much joy going forward as well, just because of how resilient Cameroon were. And from that resilience, came really good opportunities on the counter attack. We saw Choupo-Moting and Brian Mbeumo both have chances in that first half, and Zambo Anguissa throughout the entire game. He really impressed us. He's really advanced his game since he's went to Napoli, and he's shown that on the international stage as well. And despite losing the game, I do think there was a lot of positives for Cameroon to take from this. So I think going into their next games, I do think they can still get a few points and potentially get themselves through. But it will take a lot of hard work to do so.
Yeah, well, it definitely was just a great game to start the day off. Josh, any other thoughts on reflection?
Yeah, I completely agree with Alfie in terms of the way Cameroon have set themselves up. We've seen a lot of the sides, smaller sides that are coming up against bigger teams, set themselves up to frustrate. But I don't think Cameroon were without the chances in that first half, especially. I think a bit of selfishness came into play, really, on occasions. Ball should have been sent square instead of taking on a shot. But I think the pace of Choupo-Moting and Toko Ekambi in particular caused problems for the defence, Swiss defence, containing Manuel Akanji, whose quality we've seen in the Premier League seemed a bit lacking today. Admittedly, they did get away with it and they did keep the clean sheet, but I think they were in real danger at times of conceding goals. But again, you look at Cameroon looking to frustrate the opposition, and they did that for long periods of the game. Obviously, Breel Mbolo struck the winning goal in the second half. And then as they got into the game, they created more chances, but the resilient defence of Cameroon really prevented the scoreline from running away for the Swiss.
Yeah, well, I think Mbolo's muted celebration has caused a fair bit of controversy following the game, in which the goal was scored against his home country of Cameroon. Charlotte, what are your thoughts on that?
An act of class for Mbolo. It shows how much respect he's got for his birth country, and even though he's had a Swiss passport now since 2014, this will be his second World Cup with the Swiss side. It just shows his respect, and he just didn't feel it was right to celebrate, and that's absolutely his own opinion, and everyone else celebrated enough around him, I think. And after the game, the Cameroon manager even said they were friends and there's a lot of love, and obviously on the pitch they're playing against each other, but off the pitch everyone's friends and everyone's together. So yeah, I think it was really nice, and it was a bit emotional in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely a huge act of class there. Anything else that anyone just wants to throw in, or anyone have any opinions on where each team are going to go from here?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll hop in and just say, I mean, again, it's going to be interesting to see how both of these can end up advancing in the tournament. I mean, Switzerland, I think we're really hoping to get a win in this first game, especially since they're going up against Brazil, and it sort of just takes the pressure off them in a way, just to they've already got them 3 points on the board and going to this Brazil game with a little less more pressure to potentially get a result, and it's almost pushed the pressure a bit more on Cameroon as well, considering they'll be facing them later on. But I mean, on Cameroon, I think they'll look at the Serbia result from today. I mean, obviously we'll get on that game later on, but they'll see that game as a game that they will have to win, and if they can play a bit more with a bit more freedom, I think against Serbia, because they will have to open themselves up. I don't think you can go into that Serbia game with the same mentality, to be quite honest. I mean, if they do the same things as they did in the first half, perfectly fine. But again, you've really got to hit these teams when the chips are down. You need to get the points on the board. There's not many games to do, so I think that's going to have to be done when they come against them next.
Josh, anything to add?
Yeah, of course. And again, I think the way in which the Swiss play is very similar to the Serbian style in getting a lot of crosses into the box. Obviously, Switzerland scored from a low cross today. But I think for Serbia, they look for the big target men in Mitrovic and Vlahovic. And I think that's something Cameroon are going to have to look to deal with. They dealt with it reasonably well today. And I think they could cause problems for sides such as Serbia with the pace in behind and the ageing defence of Brazil as well. You might have to see a shock on the cards today. Admittedly, Brazil looked impressive, but I think Cameroon have got that pace. And if they can start to frustrate teams and teams can start to press them, they can hit fast on the break. And that's where they're going to get the chances and they're going to get their goals.
Brilliant. Well, that's all on the opening game of the day. The second kickoff of Thursday's action saw a 0-0 finish between South Korea and Uruguay. Josh, do you think this is perhaps a surprising result, given it was both teams' first appearance in the tournament so far?
I'm actually not that surprised. We've seen a lot of 0-0 games this opening sort of week. And I think teams are being a little conservative at times. Obviously, both sides have set an unwanted record in having been the first ever World Cup game with no shots on target, which is not something that's great for the confidence of either side. Obviously, Son for South Korea, the main man, nursing a bit of an injury at the moment. And you saw maybe one of his chances at the end. He was a little bit tired. He just rushed his shot a bit, sent it flying wide. But then you look at the strike force of Uruguay with Darwin Núñez, who did look a threat today, admittedly. Luis Suarez, Edison Cavani, and then the midfield containing Valverde, who's got 8 goals already this season, hitting the post. Obviously, Godin hitting the post. It was a game that wasn't without chances, but there was just a lack of cutting edge, I think, in the final third. And it was one of the more exciting 0-0 draws I think we'll see at the tournament. But it's just, again, sides lacking that cutting edge in the opening game, learning to play together still. And I think it should all come together for both sides, really, especially Uruguay. I think one of the possible dark horses, maybe a bit more closer towards the favourite end of the spectrum. But I think once they start putting together chances, and there's no doubt that these sides are going to look impressive against other sides. And I think Uruguay and even South Korea could cause Portugal problems, especially considering they conceded the goals today. I think the strikers and the quality that both sides have got in the attacking third could create problems for the sides.
And Alfie, what did you make from each side's performances today?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, Uruguay going into this game, they would expect 3 points going into it. One of the, you can easily say one of the weaker sides in South Korea. And, if everyone, like everyone's been saying, they are like a lot of people's underdogs for this tournament. I mean, like Josh mentioned, very strong squad. Didn't mention Darwin Núñez, who I did think had a solid game, I think. When a game's lacking goals like that, I think you need a player like Núñez to just be a bit greedy. And I know we talked about players just wanting to get in the headlines, get that goal to really just put himself on the mat a bit. But I think a player like Núñez, who we've seen for Liverpool over the course of his season as well, he'll shoot from anywhere, and he's really good at just getting direct, hitting the defence with pace, chopping inside him, and just whacking it from anywhere. So I think, these were quite unlucky not to score, to be honest. Like Josh mentioned, Valverde and Godin both hitting the woodwork. Valverde is a really, really great player. going forward again. But I mean, you'd expect more from a game like this. But honestly, you got to give credit to South Korea, though. I mean, they like Cameroon, they did sort of play a bit more robust formation on this, just to try and keep goals to a minimum. Like many of the other teams have done. You can only really say that Costa Rica or Iran have really failed at doing that. But I mean, yeah, you've got to give them credit where it's due, and they'll 100% take a point from this.
Yeah, well, although it's not a lose, I don't think a 0-0 finish is what either side would have wanted. But obviously, they're not going to complain. In your opinion, Josh, what do you think each team needs to do moving forward into the tournament?
Well, as Alfie said, it's a player like Nunez who's got the quality, he scores goals, and he needs to be a more direct threat. I think we spoke earlier about players being too selfish. But as Alfie says, players, sometimes you need to be unselfish and you need to take on the shots and take on the efforts, especially for a player like Son for Korea as well. When players around him don't quite have the same quality that he does, maybe sometimes it's better to be selfish, especially against Uruguay, who don't have the strongest defence. I know it is a good defence, but it's aging, like many of the defences at this World Cup seem to be. And I just think, again, just a bit more directness. Getting more shots away, getting the ball in the box, and just working the space, getting towards goal, and eventually it's going to come. Once the first goal goes in, we seem to find at this World Cup that teams, you've only got 3 games, you need to be picking up points constantly. And I know a point isn't a bad thing for either side here, but you need to be picking up points constantly to ensure that you make it through the group stage and keep that momentum going into the knockouts. So again, you take the point for the 0-0, but you need to start finding the back of the net so you can hit that momentum and carry it through.
Yeah, definitely. And, as they say, you do miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So be interesting to see where both teams go from this point. Alfie, have you got anything that you'd like to add?
I mean, again, like we said with the other match, it'll be interesting to see how both of these can get on in their next games. I mean, Uruguay, I think, will, with the chances that they had, I think they'll definitely look to get a few against Portugal, because I mean they did look a bit complacent at times against Ghana. But I mean, in a similar way, Ghana looked a little bit complacent against Portugal, and again, a team like South Korea, who can create chances against a very good Uruguay side. You'd hope that they can, maybe nick a few against Ghana and get some 3 points on the board. I mean, Charlotte, I'm going to pass over to you. Do you think that, do you believe that Korea can maybe nick a win against Ghana, potentially?
I don't think you can rule them out as such. I mean, personally, having watched Ghana play today, I'd say they would probably nip a win. But you really can't rule anybody out. And the way that Korea played today, they were so tight defensively. Ghana would be lucky to slip one in, but I don't know, they just seem to have a little bit more quality up front and they are scoring goals. So I think I'd still probably say Ghana, but I don't know either, really.
It really is just an either way game, isn't it? I mean, both showed their quality against across both their games. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see what can happen. And I mean, Tom, hand back over to you, mate. What's up next?
Brilliant. So we'll move on quickly to Portugal's victory over Ghana. Well, Portugal came out on top with a 3-2 finish against Ghana. It was a good performance overall from the Portuguese side, but Ghana have to be quite happy with their performance against arguably one of the most competitive teams in the tournament. Alfie, what are your thoughts on this?
Again, obviously Portugal going into this with a very, very good team. We're again with a lot to prove. I mean, obviously the main man, Cristiano Ronaldo, just announcing his departure from Man United. Headlights going to be on him, and when the pressure was on, he stepped up. I mean, from the pen spot, he's almost inevitable. But honestly, I mean, with just spells in this game, it just looked a little bit sloppy from both teams. I mean, you look at that at the end of the game when Diogo Costa, the goalie, nearly completely lost the 3 points for his team after Iñaki Williams just poaching behind him almost and just nicked it. He's very lucky that he got away with him just slipping over, but I'd like to see more. I'd like to see more from Portugal. I think considering how just a bit, again, like I said, just sloppy Ghana kind of way, losing the ball in just really bad positions and sort of just letting them go. We saw that for a few of their goals. I was just hoping to see more. I mean, I was impressed by Rafael Guerreiro and Bernardo Silva in that first half down the left-hand side. They're both very, very creatively adept players, and we're trying to get the balls in. Did a good job of doing it. Otavio as well was getting a bit of joy down the middle. But again, like Cameroon, they were very tight in the middle. So, I mean, getting the players around the centre, like Ronaldo, like Otavio, but didn't really have much room. And, I mean, the main player I want to see a bit more from is just João Cancelo. I mean, it might just be down to how Portugal had set up for this game, but Cancelo, I mean, down the right hand side, did not have too much joy across the first half, and for the most part for the whole game compared to what he has at Man City and what he can do. I think it'll be interesting. But I mean, Charlotte, I'm just going to hand over to you real quick. Do you think that the challenge on Ronaldo was fair to be given as a penalty, or what's your thoughts?
I don't know. I think in this day and age, yeah, it probably is. Before VAR, probably not. The ref was very quick to give it as a penalty, though. I don't know if he went down a little bit soft, but him scoring that goal meant that he became the first man to score in 5 consecutive World Cups. I think it was 2006 when he started. So it's a really good, after the week he's had as well, I think he deserved it, and it was quite emotional before the game in the national anthem as well. And you can see how much it means to him. You can see his passion for the game. And I don't know, maybe he went down a little bit soft, but I think he deserved to get the goal, and he deserved that boost and have the support after everything he's gone through in the past few weeks.
Yeah, and one thing's for sure, Portugal will be happy with that win to kick off their international contest. Josh, just come to you now. Do you think that result was expected with Portugal going up against Ghana, or do you think it's a bit of a surprise result?
I think Portugal will have been expected to win the game. Obviously, a European side against an African side. African side still now looking for their first win. I think the performance maybe from Portugal lacked in places. Ronaldo's obviously got his goals, Charlotte mentioned. And I think that could be a big boost for the tournament. He's a man that's going to be looking for clubs in January. And I think with that network around him, he's going to be trying to find a new club, and he needs the confidence. After the sort of start to the season he's had, admittedly, it's half and half in terms of his own doing and half in terms of what's gone on at the club. We don't know. But I think the overall performance from Portugal, it was good, but lacking in places. I think they scored the goal and they seemed to shut off a little bit. And it was just one simple ball. Danilo fails to clear, obviously, the cross, and Andrew Ayew taps it in. And that's what good strikers do. Do you know what I mean? He's got good experience. He's getting on a bit now. He knows where balls are going to drop in penalty areas. He gambles on the mistake and he gets there and he pokes home. Admittedly, it didn't last long, and Portugal quickly strode back into a lead. A mistake from the Ghana defence, and João Felix with a really good finish, I must say, right into the bottom corner. And then Rafael Leao, a player many are touting for a big money move in summer, showed the quality that they've got, really. And the difference really was the quality, I think, today. But at times, again, Portugal let themselves down a little bit. I think the mistake at the end could have been really costly. And it's just basics that should be dealt with. And again, a cross not dealt with at the back post for Portugal, and they conceded the second, and it makes for a nervy last. There's going to be another 10 minutes added on after that, or 7 minutes, however many minutes were added on. And it's going to, why put yourself in the position to make it a nervous game when you could put the game, they were still charging the box, even at 3-2. You see the Portugal players driving the ball into the box, and there's time left, but you should be calmer than that. They seem to be panicking and looking for that fourth goal rather than just settling down, calming the game down. And not panicking. And I think that could, against better sides, I think that could prove to be their undoing at some points. Ghana, for me, I think looked impressive in spells. They didn't, again, another one of these smaller sides that looked to frustrate. They conceded the 3 goals, but I think cut out some defensive mistakes. You get a penalty. And you're looking at a side that possibly have a chance in against South Korea. Uruguay, another game. Obviously, they might struggle in that one, I think. But I think South Korea would be a good opportunity to possibly pick up some points because they've got the quality there. And I think that is probably going to be the tightest game in the group between those two sides, actually.
I think you've got to give credit to Ghana, though. I mean, the way that they presenting themselves in that game. I think tactically, to be honest, I think they did recognise the shortcomings of Portugal. You know, with a few mistakes that they did make, like Josh said. I mean, it's just down to the basics, and they fully clock onto that. But like, you know, for the IU goal, completely switched off. Second goal, completely switched off. And I think with the players that they've got going forward, I mean, kudos. I mean, you know, despite losing the game, really, really impressive. We've seen him, you know, in the Eredivisie and in the Champions League. You know, he's done very, very good so far. But I think this is the first time seeing him on the international stage, and really impressed us. Honestly, going forward for that second goal, just way simple. And you know, sometimes against these teams, it's just what you got to do. You just got to keep it simple, keep it on the floor, and eventually you will find that goal. It'll be interesting to see, like I said, how they will do against South Korea. To be quite honest, because if they can hit South Korea with the same intensity that they hit Portugal with, I can definitely see there being goals in that game. But I mean, when you look at the defense, it really doesn't instill me with confidence. I think Jiku and Salisu, you know, both very clumsy in that first half, to be quite honest. I think just the mistakes, and you know, despite even being part of the back three, you've got to be tighter. You've got to be more of a unit. So I think if they're going to start the next game, I think they need to sort it out. Or players like Son, like Wang Yi-chan, are really going to punish them.
I think while on Portugal territory, we may as well discuss the controversy surrounding Cristiano Ronaldo following today's game. Obviously, as mentioned before, you know, there were a few tears from him during the national anthem, and of course, you know, the big news about him is that he's parted ways with Manchester United. So, Charlotte, I'm going to come to you here. What's your opinion on this?
Like I said, it's such an emotional week for Ronaldo. Like, he's obviously, so much has happened. He's obviously not been happy at Manchester United from the blow up of the interview, but this is exactly what he needed: some support, and just having people that like watch him as a football player, not part of a club that's like surrounded by controversy all the time. And he wasn't getting played, and he was storming off and all this, but now he's playing for his country, and it seems that he's just like almost finding himself again as a player. There is no doubt that people are going to be contacting him ahead of January. I bet his agent's so busy already. But you can just see it when he scored the goal, it just felt like a massive, it felt like a massive relief for him. And you can see all the emotion, and it's just exactly what he needed, especially surrounding the past couple of weeks, like I said.
I just want to ask you, do you think it can spur him to go far in the tournament? Given you've done a lot of research into Ronaldo, and do you think, sort of, not mind games, but do you think this goal will give him the boost to sort of get going in the tournament and really, really help spur Portugal on?
Yeah, definitely. Like, he's obviously doing it for his country, but there's rumours that this is going to be his last World Cup spell. So he's doing it for himself as well. He's got so much to prove. Especially after the past 2 weeks, but it's Cristiano Ronaldo. So of course, he's just so passionate, and he's got so much emotion in the game, and his life is the game, and it has been for how many years. So yeah, definitely, I think he will be a catalyst for if they go far. If he keeps performing the way he is doing and the way he has done today, then yeah, I can definitely see them going far.
Brilliant. And has anyone got anything else to add regarding the Portugal and Ghana game?
Shout out Bruno Fernandes. Played a very good game. I mean, he shut the critics up a little bit, to be quite honest. He's not been amazing for Man United as of recent, but I mean, going forward, I think he looked really good. Playing just them sort of like really good, just basic through balls to putting on a plate for some of the players. I mean, you saw the ball for Rafael Leao's goal, really good finish from him, and I think in the same breath, Leao is someone you really need to look at. Surprised he's not starting, to be quite honest, considering the level he's been playing at AC Milan, but really, really good player. Honestly, keep an eye on him.
But just carrying on from that. I was also impressed by Leao. I think he's, as I said earlier, one to watch out for this summer, and I think he's definitely going to have a big part to play in this tournament. Obviously, winning the Euros in 2016, I think a lot of Portugal fans might be confident, and I think they have a good side to compete with the other big sides. They just need to sort out the mistakes, and I think they can really push on.
Brilliant. Well, moving on now to the final game of the day, which was Brazil versus Serbia. So the final game of the day saw Brazil face Serbia and storm to a 2-0 victory. Josh, what are your thoughts following the match?
Well, it was a good game of football. I mean, Brazil dominated, as you'd expect. I think Serbia created very little, and again, we've spoke about sides setting up to frustrate. Interestingly, they played sort of a 5 at the back, 3 at the back formation, which I thought was interesting. The 3 centre-backs, very big lads, as you'd expect. Serbians, usually quite tall players. Big, strong players. And I thought against a smaller side such as Brazil, they did cause them some issues in terms of Brazil not being able to create as they usually would like. Brazilian flair obviously shining through in the end. I think once they got the first goal, the floodgates were beginning to open. You could see the Serbia players beginning to tire. Obviously, Richarlison, again, we've seen it for Everton, not so much for Spurs, but he knows where to be in the box. And as we spoke about Ayew earlier, a player who knows where to be in the box is always going to be a threat. Getting on the end of the cross, poking it home, and then the second one, unbelievable. What you'd expect from a Brazilian player, flicking it up, and then the talent and technique to be able to do that. Goal of the tournament contender already. And I think after that, Brazil I think the commentator summed it up best by saying they did the hard work for 60 minutes. They did the chores. I thought Casemiro played a very good game, actually. He was rarely troubled in terms of the fact that he made everything look easy, shuttling between the lines, breaking up play, and that allowed Paqueta and Neymar, who was playing in a central role. Well, I say a central role. He was just roaming. He was Neymar. I think the manager has just told Neymar, you just roam wherever you want. And I think it really worked for Brazil today. Once they got the first goal and once they'd done the hard work, they were able to just enjoy themselves really and create a lot of chances. I thought Milinkovic-Savic in the Serbia goal really impressed me, actually. Doing well to keep the scoreline down. But I think the ruthless side of Brazil will come out against other teams, Switzerland, for example, and Cameroon. And I think you're going to see plenty of goals from this Brazil side, and they're going to be really enjoyable to watch this tournament.
Yeah, and they definitely did prove untouchable throughout today's game. It certainly wasn't the start of the tournament that Serbia were looking for. Alfie, just want to come to you for a second. Where do you think the squad's mindset is following that 2-0 loss? And, where do you think their area of focus needs to be moving forward into the tournament?
I mean, I think you got to look forward. I mean, going up against one of the tournament's main favourites really in first games is never going to be an easy. It's never going to be an easy ask, is it? But I do think there's still some players that we can get back and get them through really. Like Josh mentioned, Milinkovic, Savic, Kostic, Tadic, Vlahovic, all the H's. They can really turn it on in some games, and they're all playing at high levels, at club level. So if players are going to get them through, it's going to be them ones, because to be quite honest, there's not going to be too much at the back. I don't think there's not really too much talent there compared to what's going forward. So I mean, the goals are going to have to come, and I mean that's really what's going to happen. And obviously Serbia up next, not Serbia up next, sorry, Cameroon up next for Serbia. And like I mentioned with Cameroon, they did play a very, very kept a tight ship, kept it neat in the middle, and that may, if they do the same thing against Serbia, that may cause them problems because they're looking for the big men, they're looking for Vlahovic and Mutovic, and if they're gonna be searching for them in the box, trying to get the headers in, it's going to be harder. But I mean, if the space is there down the wings, you can imagine Kostic and Tadic trying to swing the balls in a bit more, or maybe just going alone and like the Selfridges we talked about, just trying to do it by themselves and just if they're struggling to get shots away, you might as well just dig it, test the keeper a little bit. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they can do. And as for Brazil, I mean, it was absolutely routine for them, to be quite honest. They just. It was basic, wasn't it? Just so much quality across that pitch, so many joys to watch, and it just made it look easy. If they can do the same against Switzerland, I don't see why not. I really don't see why they can't just do the same and just turn them over, to be quite honest. And they'll be looking forward to further on in the tournament. Who the bigger teams they're going to be facing, because it's similar to England's group. They're looking at this group thinking, we can go away with 9 points here, really make a statement, get the goals in. And I mean, the goals did come. Richarlison, the main man up top, smashing second goal as well, compared to the routine first finish. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if Brazil can live up to the hype, to be quite honest.
Great. And has anyone else got anything they'd just like to add?
Yeah, I think it was an interesting choice, obviously, to start Richarlison, especially given the form of Gabriel Jesus for Arsenal this season, and Richarlison maybe not having the same level of form for Spurs. But I think he proved today why he deserves that starting spot. He can be deployed as an out-and-out 9, but not usually. He can play out wide. But I think he fitted the role well. He allowed the other players freedom, especially Neymar, who again really impressed me today. I thought Rafinha maybe had a little bit of a quiet game, should have done better with a couple of his chances. Same with Vinicius. I thought Rodrigo, when he came on, was quite impressive, creating that space. And again, it was sort of in the last 10 minutes where Brazil really started to shine, create the chances, and Milinkovic-Savic was there to make the saves. But as the tournament goes on, as Alfie suggests, I think they're going to be looking forward to facing these big sides. And I think if they can come away from this group having cruised quite easily through it, I think the tests against the bigger sides, they'll be confident of competing.
I think what you said about Richarlison and the choice to start him up front, I really do think it comes down to trust, to be quite honest. We'll see with international sides, sticking to a pretty, routine formation and squad across, multiple years. And I think, it comes with experience on an international stage. I mean, Richarlison's got that compared to Gabriel Jesus, who's sort of been in the background a little bit on the international stage. And you can say the same for a few other teams. I think of England, and people calling for players like Trent and Maddison to start in the team. Maybe not so much Trent, but I think Maddison especially. I think it does come down to the fact that he's not been in and around the England team as much as some of the other lads. Compared to players like Calvin Phillips, who I saw people thinking, why is he on the plane? It's because Southgate trusts him. You look at him, how good he was in the Euros. He was integral to that team. So I mean, I'll just pop it to you, Shaw. I mean, like, how important do you think trust is in football, and especially international football?
I think you just summed it up really well, Alf. Like, if you don't trust your players, and the players won't trust you, and I think it's all about building momentum, especially in these group games. Every point matters, every goal matters. Everybody's there for the same reason. They're playing for their country. It's arguably the biggest tournament in the world. So being able to trust your players, and your players having trust in the management and everything to do with the club and the country, and it's like respect and emotion and passion. It is basically highlighting everything great about football. And I think it's so important, like you said, to have trust. And build on that trust as well and prove yourself for your country, and yeah, have everybody rooting for you. And I think that's what makes football so good.
Brilliant. Well, tomorrow sees another 4 matches to look forward to. Obviously, Wales take on Iran at 10 o'clock. Qatar face Senegal at 1 o'clock, and the Netherlands face Ecuador at 4. Before the big one, USA face England at 7 o'clock, which is going to be a good game. Anyone got any predictions on how that's going to go?
I'm feeling it. I'm feeling an England domination, to be quite honest. I mean, you know, you look at how we went out against Iran, and you know everything just really fell into place. I do think with the USA team, you know, they're going to look to frustrate. They might play for a draw. So I think getting the early goal is going to be crucial, to be quite honest. I mean, there's talk about Harry Kane potentially not being in the squad, and you know, it could almost be in our hands. You know, Callum Wilson, a player with a bit more pace, but you know, still has the cutting edge and the finish on him to get the goals. But I think, yeah, getting the early goal is going to be absolutely massive. We can get Saka and Sterling in behind early. You know, just really being a handful for the wing backs and the full backs. You know, I think we can really come away with that with a win. So, Josh, anything for you, mate?
3-0 England. Saka, Kane again. That's it.
Well said. That's Charlotte?
2-0 England. I'm going to go Saka and Kane again. Maybe Jude Bellingham as well. He was really good the other day. So, yeah, Tom?
I think England. I think that's probably a bit biased of me, though, to be honest. But I'd like to see them. Secure a win for sure.
And I mean, if you had to push us for a scoreline, I mean, you know what? If we get that early goal, I really see us getting a few. I'm gonna go with Josh on this. I'm gonna say 3-0. I'm saying 1 for Sterling. I'll say Deck gets himself on the scoreline, and you know, we'll say Trippier as well. You know, getting a goal for the Mugs. Why not? Love it.
Well, there we have it. That's all we've got time for on tonight's podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, take care.